So the first thing I just have to speak on is the woman that did our treatment this morning. When you see gentlemen get up here, you may see that she's physically challenged. But I want to assure you that her finding this teaching and applying it so brilliantly to her life has given her life. And I don't mean to speak for you, dear, but we all pretty much know that there was a time when you were on a downward trend and you were succumbing to the things the doctors were telling you. And you don't do that anymore. You live your life full out, and you use these teachings to make your life work. And I'm so incredibly proud and honored to know you. Will you please give her a hand? So I'm going Bible on you today. Nobody's going to die. You'll be okay. There's just some important things that I want to share from that perspective. And as you can see, I'm speaking on the power of prophecy. We don't talk about prophecy much in our teaching. It's not something in the traditional way of seeing prophecy that we would embrace, yet we do embrace it. But to look at it from a biblical standpoint, prophecy has always been an important part of the Judeo-Christian faith. In the characters of the Bible, there are a number that are considered prophets. They include Isaiah, Samuel, Ezekiel, Malachi, Jeremiah, John the Baptist. The Islamic movement says that Jesus was a prophet. They also say that Muhammad, their leader, their founder, was a prophet. So this idea of calling someone a prophet is very revering. And also, it wasn't just guys. There were a number of women in the Bible that were listed as prophets. In fact, Isaiah's wife was called the prophetess. And others included Sarah, Deborah, Miriam, and Samuel's wife, Hannah. Yes. No, actually, Samuel's mother, Hannah. Get this right. All these people were said to be able to speak of things that were yet to come. It's an interesting notion, and it's unfortunate that it limits the idea of a prophet to only certain individuals. Because in the science of mind, that's not the way we would use this term. That's not the way we would see prophecy. We would understand that we are all prophets, that we are all prophesying all the time. And to demonstrate that, to begin that conversation, I'm actually going to read. I'm going to read from the Christian Bible, chapter 7 of the book of Exodus. You're all familiar with the book of Exodus, mostly about Moses. Moses was an interesting character in that he had this really miraculous start in his life when they were killing the Israeli children in Egypt to keep that population under control, which was in slavery. And the mother of Moses took him and put him in a little basket and ran it down the river to where the Pharaoh's daughter was bathing in the river. And when this thing floated up and she saw it was a baby, she said, "Mine." And she convinced her father, Pharaoh, to allow her to raise this child as her own, which she did. But it wasn't kept from him that he was an Israeli. So that made for a really interesting growing up. My guess is he had some real confidence issues. He was not well spoken. He was not considered a great leader of anything. He married a Jewish woman, and this story that I'm going to tell you actually comes from a time in his life when he was acting as a sheep herder for his father-in-law. That's how the story begins. And this is kind of how it went. So Moses is out in the desert with this flock, and he spies something very odd. There's a bush in the desert that is on fire. And you can imagine if a bush is on fire, it's going to burn itself out pretty quick. But in this particular case, the bush didn't. So out of curiosity, Moses approached. and looking deep into this bush, trying to figure out why it was on fire, but it wasn't being consumed. And he suddenly hears a voice. And the voice says, "Moses, Moses." Moses said, "Here am I." Then the voice said, "Come no closer. Put off your shoes, for this place you stand is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." Hearing this, Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. The voice continued, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cries and know their sorrows. I come to deliver them out of the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them to a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Come now, as I send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Moses said, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And the voice said, "Certainly, I will be with you always." Then Moses asked, "When I come to the children of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I tell them?" And God said to Moses, "Tell them I am that I am. And thus you shall tell the children of Israel, 'I am has sent you.'" Interesting story, interesting take. Now, of course, we don't ascribe to the idea of having a conversation with a separate being called God. Nonetheless, this is important because something's going on. Something's going on. Moses asks, "What is your name? What shall I tell them your name is?" And his answer is, "I am that I am." Simply the presence. Now, this translates into our world in a very interesting way. So much so that I would say, burning bush. So much so that I would say that this idea of I am has extraordinary power. And that when we say it, even though we probably don't think of it this way, we're saying our name. How could that be? Well, what did God say his name was? What did God say his name was? Yeah. What is God's name? Who is God? That's correct. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are the God of your being, not separate from God, but as that divine presence. You are. And that is your name. I am. Now, you can call yourself by whatever you'd like, but the highest truth of you is that you are the divine presence. And when you say I am, what you're doing is you're claiming your divinity. And whatever you follow that two-word phrase with is your prophecy. That's where you're prophesying that your life will be this way. And it doesn't matter what words you put after it. The law of spirit doesn't care, because the law of spirit will take what your thought is and turn it into your reality. That's how the law works. So when you say, I am stupid, when you say, I am lost, when you say, I am broke, when you say anything of that sort, that's what you're going to get. That's exactly what's coming. And it's not going to take long, because the power of the I am is immediate. Now, the thing is that when we teach people to pray in this teaching, we say you must believe what you're saying for it to be so in your life. You must believe it. Without question, you must accept it and know that it's so. And you have this idea of something that you want to be in your life. Health, a loving relationship, whatever it is that you're focused on. You must know that it's so. My guess is that every time you say I am, whatever you follow that with, you already believe that's so, whether other people see it in you or not. But it doesn't matter what they see. What matters is what you see, who you see. Who do you see? What do you see as you when you say, I am? Do you say, I am kind? Do you say, I am generous? Do you say, I am grateful? What are your words? They're prophetic. They're creating the prophecy of your life. Ooh, it just turned spring. Couldn't help it, had to tell you that. Yay, I am happy. We made it to spring. I am so powerful. No two words are more powerful in our language. And I would say, however that translates into any language, that's the most powerful thing that can be said. I am. Because you're bringing forth that thing that you say afterwards. Whatever it is, whatever you're calling into your life, you're doing it with those two words. And I'll tell you, the law of the divine is listening intently to know who you are so that you can live that life that you are choosing through your statement of belonging. I am. I am. I am. So think just for a moment here. Who are you? What would you say if someone asked you, who are you? You would say, well, I am, and what would be the first word out of your mouth? What would come forth very naturally? And would you be pleased with that? Would it be enough? Would it take you to the place in this life, on this planet, at this time, to the place that you would be prophesying to be? It's a powerful notion. And we do use this all the time. We say, I am all the time. And then, of course, it's so common, we've taken it down to a contraction. I'm. Leave out the letter A and put in a strike. What's the difference? It's the same, going to the same place. It's the idea of you are declaring that is who you are. And when you do, that's who you get to be. Now, I believe in something else along with this idea of prophecy and being a prophet. There's another thing that, well, there's the power of prophecy. Beware of false prophets. And it says in Matthew, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. That sounds kind of dangerous, right? Now, when I was growing up and I heard this taught, it was that there would be these people that would come into your life that would tell you things that were lies. They would tell you things that were not true, and they would lead you in a terrible direction. That's not what that means. This has a very different connotation in my world anyway, and I want to share that with you. I believe that the false prophets in my life, and perhaps in yours, are going on the inside of us. And what would they look like? Well, for the purpose of this talk, I've come up with 4 false prophets that seem to be a bit active in my life. And I share them with you. And I would imagine there are many, many, many more than this. But from my vantage point, these are the ones that kind of floated to the top in my thoughts as I prepared for this talk. The first one is this simple. False prophet number 1, impatience. I have at times spoken proudly of being impatient, getting laughter from when I say it. Impatience. I'm not patient. I am impatient. Oh, what do I get from that? Well, not what I want. In my life, there have been times where I just wanted it, and I wanted it now. I think we talked about that recently. I played that Queen song, I want it, and I want it now. I want it all, and I want it now. But what I'm discovering is that when I'm trying to push the river, I don't get where I want to go. And what I want to have happen doesn't happen. And the best example in my life right now is right here on this property. For 3 years, I have been pushing and conjuring and cajoling to get this creek bank fixed and to get us a new driveway. And I've worked hard to get that done. And my goal was to have it done before I retired. Yeah, that was my big goal, that whoever would be the next spiritual leader of this community, I would hand them over a property that was all done, that was working, that was optimally used, that had plenty of parking, and had a creek bank that was stable. So what do I get? I get hurricanes. I get arguments with engineers. I get confusion, bewilderment, upset, ad nauseum, to the point where it was suggested this past week, that this thing needs to take a different turn. And it looks like maybe it won't be done until like September. And I got to tell you, that just pissed me off. Because I'm not going to be here as your minister in September. Well, that's what I get because of my impatience, because of my pushing, and because of all the nonsense that I've created along the way. We have two amazing men that are volunteering their time to this center to make this work out. They're R.J. Taylor and Bob Michelle. They're both in the room right now. They are experts in the field of things that have to do with the earth. I'm not. I have 2 degrees in psychology. And I have invited that creek bank to come into my office and sit down, and we'll resolve its problems, but that hasn't worked at all. I'm an expert in things that have nothing to do with this creek bank, that have to do with, and thinking, well, I was here in charge when we built these buildings, I should be able to do this. Not necessarily. This thing's alive out there. It's doing things that I have no direct control over. So I have to let it go. I have to let it go. I have to trust that it is on its perfect path. Even though it's going on 4 years, it's on its perfect path, unfolding as it must. So all of you know that we've widened our driveway. You might have noticed if you came in our original entrance driveway this morning that our sign is gone. Another little task where I over-explained something to someone. All I wanted them to do was take down one panel, and I said, then we're going to take the whole thing down. Yeah, he took the whole thing down. So I'm hoping in a couple of weeks, if I can be less than totally impatient, that I can talk the city into allowing us to build our new sign out at the other road. And what I want you to know is I'm perfectly fine with you coming in the new driveway and going out the new driveway. It's not paved, it's not striped, but it's there and it works. So we're not going to block it like we have the last couple of weeks so that people would be forced to go out. You're just going to have to remember that's the way out is through the parking to the end of the parking lot and up the ramp. Okay. I can remember scolding people for coming in that driveway. And now I'm just saying, just do it. Just do it. All right? So this is my process of letting go so that things can happen exactly as they're supposed to happen. I really won't be surprised if the whole thing with the creek bank comes together before September just because I got out of it. But I'm okay. I'm really okay. This is fine. This tells me that I can focus on the other things that are important in my life right now and let people who know what they're doing handle that. So that's what impatience will get you. That's my example right now of what impatience will get you. So look at your life and see where you're impatient and see if you can't turn that around and find some divine patience to guide you to know that things are unfolding as they must for everyone's highest and best. The next one I came up with was distractions from your vision. Now, I could go back into the creek story about having a vision, but I never wanted to fix the creek. I just wanted it to be okay. It wasn't like I had this monumental vision of how it should be. I just wanted it not to be a problem. And that's not a vision. If you have things in your life you don't want, that's not your vision. Your vision has to be something greater than where you are right now. Something bigger, something more beautiful and wonderful than where you are right now. That's a vision. So my vision right now is to be with my beloved for every breath that we have. And that's what I'm working toward. And I want to thank you for supporting me in that and not making us wrong for leaving this pulpit. We're not abandoning you. There are some great people that are looking at coming and being the leader of this community. And one of them you're going to pick, if you're a member, one of them you're going to pick. And when you do, you're going to have a great leader. And it's interesting because I've always thought it was important to have a legacy, but my legacy can't happen while I'm here. It has to happen when I'm gone to see if it holds together, and I think it will. I really do. And that you'll have the wisdom to choose the right leader and to move forward with grace and ease and have all the benefits of whoever that is and whatever they bring. That's going to happen quicker than you think. So, what is your vision? And how do you not get distracted away from it? How do you not put it on the back burner? How do you make it the central focus of your life so that you do something in that regard every day? That's what a vision is. That's what a vision does. So stay with it and see if that doesn't work for you. The third one is thinking happiness comes from possessions. This is just a general human thing, that somehow we identify with what we have. And we think that that's why we're happy, because we have those things. But I have seen again and again in my life and lots of other lives that we think, oh, if I just had that one thing, that relationship, that place to live, that job, whatever it is that we think is so important. And perhaps we get it. Perhaps we get exam, we go, this is it. I've made it. Everything's wonderful. For a while. And then life seeps back in, and things aren't as cool and keen as we thought they were. And suddenly we've got to find something else to make us happy. No. That's a false prophet. The truth is that your happiness comes from being happy. And that's all. It's your choice. And it's based on nothing that you own or have or are. It's based on the truth of your being that you choose happiness. That's big. And if we would all learn that lesson and let go of that false prophet that somehow it has to do with something else, we'd all be a lot happier. This is what Paul said in the book his letter to the Galatians. You cannot fool God, so don't make a fool of yourself. You will harvest what you plant. If you follow your selfish desires, you will harvest destruction. But if you awaken to the spirit of your being, you will harvest contentment. Anybody here not want contentment? That's the path. The path is not through stuff, not through creating stuff. It's through who you're being. And are you being who you've come to be? Because deep down inside, whether you can articulate it right now or not, you're here for a reason. And the only thing that will work for you and draw you happiness is to be on that path and to do it joyously. And the final one is needing to make others happy. You think it's hard to make yourself happy? Try to make somebody else happy. Oh, but if they would just do what I tell them to, we'd all be so happy. Everything would work out just gratefully. No. They want to be miserable, they get to be miserable. They want to struggle, they get to struggle. If you share a bed with them, then you got to look at yourself and say, why'd you pick this one? And usually it's not about who we're sharing a bed with. It's usually about people in our lives that just aren't acting the way we think they should act. Let it go. The only thing to do with people like that is to love them. Now, that doesn't mean that they get to abuse you. I'm not talking about that. If you have someone that's abusing you in your life, lying to you, going behind your back, betraying you in any way, don't get mad at them. Just let them go. Yeah, but they're my sibling. I don't care. If it's not working out, let them go. Wish them well, but let them go. And live your life and make your life work. It's too much work to try to make their life work. Don't even try. Just wish them well and know the best for them and let them be who they are. And when you do, your life will get better because your load will be lightened. So they're really just that simple. That's just what I wanted to tell you this morning, is that you are the prophet of your life. That everything that you do creates, everything that you say about yourself is the creative point of your life, especially and most completely when you say I am. So be a healthy prophet that brings good into the world by being who you've come to be, by opening your heart to life, and by remembering the truth that you are the I am, the great I am, and that all is well. And with that, I tell you again, I love you, and I do. Thank you. Thank you.